Welcome, everybody, to the November 30th edition, 2025, of the Academy of Real Estate Boston's Ask Me Anything, where we get to bare our souls to you. And if you have questions, no questions too big or too small. We do have a couple that were asked in advance, so we'll go to those if people don't have questions. But for those of you who are here now, we will answer questions. Just to do some introductions, I am Julie Beck. I'm the assistant director and a teacher here at the school.
I'm Jess Nelson. I'm a teacher at the school, and Antonio is parking, and he'll be here
Yeah, and
shortly.
Antonio will be joining us as well. We'll kick it off. It looks like Todd, was it Todd? You had a question right away in the chat. Love that enthusiasm and taking initiative for starting us off here. So Todd's question is, when painting drapery, is it better to use I'm assuming you mean complementary. Is it better to use complementary colors for shadows or black? Well, that is a little bit of a loaded question because it depends on what color your drapery is. So the common discussion is like the use of black, which many instructors I've heard people say that to not use black, like black is like an illegal color to use. However, I personally don't agree with that. I think black can be a really useful color. So one example would be is if you were painting blue fabric and you needed some really dark blues that were low chroma in the shadows. Black is kind of like the best option in many ways. It's your darkest value that you're possible with an oil paint. Um, so yeah, so for shadows, you have a lot of options. Like what would you say your like go-to colors are for like when you're trying to get a dark color for your shadow values? Black is one that I use depending on the color, but what would be some of your go-to?
Yeah, I'm not like anti-black in paint. Like it's like I just yeah, I feel like I tend to lean a little warmer in the shadows, so I might transparently put down like a burnt umber as a base layer and then layer that with depending on after that dries, depending on what direction I want to push it in. So sometimes it could do like black thinly applied over that or ultramarine. Um, so it really depends for me, I would say. Sometimes I just layer up thin layers of umber, like burnt umber, and then it kind of
Hmm.
gradually becomes a pretty dark value, but with warm undertones, but not that it doesn't look the same as if you apply it opaquely, and it looks a lot
Yeah,
nicer, I would say.
yeah.
So I'll do that too. So it kind of just depends, I would say.
Yeah. Yeah, so that's that I would agree with that. So
Yeah.
especially like in a first layer, I'm not going for especially in shadows where this kind of relates to another question that
Oh, Antonia.
we have a chair for you.
Good.
If you have another question that came in was something about how do you keep shadows harmonious or things like that. And a lot of times with the shadows, our first layer isn't hitting our darkest values anyways um, because it's like thinner, right? We're not globbing paint on, so we do have some transparency to those early layers. So we're just trying to get our values most of the way there, and burnt umber is a great option for that because burnt umber is a fast drying pigment. It's not as dark as a black or an ultramarine blue or even an alizarin, so it's still dark. It's probably a value 7 out of the tube, or just, dark. And it's super fast drying. So if you're looking to do thinner layers faster, ivory black is super slow drying, like obnoxiously slow drying. So with that in mind, I don't like to put a ton of ivory black in shadows to begin with because it's going to be slow drying and it's killing my color right away. Whereas if you, let's say you put down a burnt umber to get those kind of warm umber or like amber tones of the burnt umber, and then you do another thinner layer using black, you're not going to get this kind of flat, dead black. You're going to have something more rich because you'll be able to see the red through or the reddish amber through the ivory black. So you'll get this kind of warmer tone. Does that make sense, Todd?
Yes.
Yeah. So, I mean, if it was like a red cloth, I probably would be using more alizarins and ultramarines. If it was a yellow cloth, I definitely probably would not be using black in the shadows. I'd probably use more umbers or alizarins or even purples, like a dioxazine or a combination of alizarin and ultramarine, just because it plays differently with yellows and oranges, right? So the question was basically how when you're painting drapery, this goes for anything, not just drapery. But drapery, who's asking if you use complementary colors for the shadows or black to darken.
I
So,
use, oh, sorry.
you know, good. I
Hi
didn't know what you
everyone.
were. This is Antonio.
Hi everyone. So usually what I do is definitely go for the complementary colors because that way you can play with kind of like the nice complement, and also like when you're adding black, it kills completely the purity of the general color of the object.
Yeah.
At the end, I think if you just like want to create an illusion, I think black is gonna kill any color. So
Yeah.
I always try to keep it a little bit more chromatic, so that way like feels also more
Yeah.
interesting to your eye. So
Yeah.
black usually like just like drops
Yeah.
the chroma, and then like if you wanted to make it like really dark, maybe, but in many cases, if you know how to balance the values, I think that's more important
Hmm.
because you don't have to create like super dark
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
shadow.
And it kind of like building off of that, one of our projects here at ARA, when you get into the last quarter of the program, is the tenebrism assignment. And what Antonio did for his tenebrism, I thought was really smart because black can be really useful. We use a lot of black in our neutrals when we're doing cast painting. We use a lot of black if you're doing, if you are intentionally trying to neutralize, or it's just a lot easier than trying to mix like seven different colors to get this gray. Black and white's kind of easy. But what I thought was really smart about the way that a lot of people are approaching the tenebrism, which is usually a light and dark pattern, and we're trying to get things emerging from the shadows, is Antonio's background for his was intentionally done by just layering thin applications of darker colors and actually getting kind of an impressionistic vibration. So it didn't just feel like flat, like the canvas is flat.
Yeah.
And if you had put like just flat black down to darken the backgrounds, it would have looked flat, but
Yeah.
instead you use these kind of I think it was a lot of the burnt umbers,
Mhm.
ultramarines, alizarin, like kind of vibrating these thinner layers on top of each other to create more of like this literal depth of layers, which I thought was really effective because it was this kind of trompe l'oeil box of some boots and a hammer and pencils, and but it felt like there was air in the background. So it's really kind of what you're going for.
Yeah, in many cases, also like what I did, what I remember was to sometimes you can create a black just by using alizarin and crimson and ultramarine blue.
Mhm.
So that could like gives you a very chromatic black. That's what I
Yeah.
usually do.
Yeah. And I've also been especially using for earlier layers. I think one of us said it. But the a lot of times when teachers don't want you to use black, they suggest using ultramarine blue and burnt umber as a mixture. Now that's not going to get as dark as an ivory black, but it is more neutral. You've got an orangey brown and a purpley blue. Those two things are complements. So they create more of a neutral and a very dark neutral and a faster drying neutral. So that's a common mixture that I'll use for a block in for a first layer of a shadow if I want to make sure it's like super dark. For example, like my all black still life, or just a lot of darker objects. That's going to be a great go-to mixture for an initial block in because it's fast drying, it's neutral, and it's going to get my values there a lot faster.
Yeah.
Yeah. Does that answer your question, Todd? Do you need us to elaborate on any more of that?
No, that kind of hits it. I think well, you saw me working on the painting at BFAC a couple
Yeah,
weeks ago.
you had red fabric in that, right?
Just on one blanket, but I was working on blue bed sheets and just trying to get the rumpled look of bed sheets.
Yeah.
I
Yeah, I
was
mean,
fighting.
black could be useful there because Black, no, the ivory black is a little bit more transparent than, let's say, a Mars black. Mars black is a little bit warmer, but it's faster drying, but super opaque. So you've always got trade-offs. Your ivory black could be useful in the shadows if it's really, really dark. If you're just going for like, I just need to darken, ultramarine blue is a great option. Prussian blue is a great option. Fast drying, but it's a bluey green. You've got ultramarine, which is slower drying, but it's a purpley green and dark. So you've got options, but don't count blackout as out of your arsenal. It's just that you just got to know how to use it effectively.
Yeah,
I
it's
started with black, but I felt like I was pulling it back the whole time, like it was too much. So
Yeah.
I feel like
I'm wondering if
when
I
you
should use like red to pull the blues down or make it darker.
Mm.
Did you? I don't know though.
Oh, yeah, okay. I was like, I don't know what this. I feel like yeah, when I painted blue fabric and I don't exactly remember because it was a couple years ago, but I do think I used some thin, like some additional. I put a little black into some of the shadows. It wasn't like painting opaquely though. It was very transparent and Prussian blue and ultramarine. So it's like I found like it was always kind of like building it up and kind of, but it was making an appearance in that for sure.
Mhm.
You using anything to take the chroma out of the blue?
Um, I don't know if I really needed to. Maybe I don't really remember, but I think it maybe the black did that.
Yeah.
I don't remember like running into that very much.
I like black in blue fabric. Black is great to slightly drop chroma because it's still in the color family, right? It's still a blue, but it drops the chroma. It is a lower chroma than anything else,
Yeah.
right? So if you're just trying to subtly drop chroma in a blue fabric, black is actually a great option. If you're trying to significantly drop the chroma, like to the point where it's like super, super neutral, I would go for more of like a burnt, like a neighboring or a complement to drop the chroma, because you're leaving that color. It's really going to be kind of counteracting the blues, and you're going to be like super neutralizing. So that's where you could go with a burnt umber. That's where you could go with a raw umber, but you're also going to be adjusting the value with those as well.
That sounds good. I wish I knew someone that did like a color boot camp thing. I could
I know. It's almost as if that could be useful. Uh,
Thanks,
um,
guys. New York.
okay, that you're good. You're good for the answer there.
Ruby, all
Great,
set.
great. Okay, let's go. Okay, we've got whoa,
Oh, wow.
some more questions. Okay. Uh, Okay, one of the questions is Rajneesh asks, after applying retouch varnish, can I paint on top and then do a final varnish? Do you guys want to take either of you want to take this or
I never use touch varnish.
retouch varnish?
Yeah, I
So yeah, you have,
I don't know.
sorry, it's my mother. I gotta call you back. I'm on a Zoom, mommy. I'll, I have to call you back. We're
Um,
very professional here.
yes. I've never used retouch varnish. I don't really like know what it actually is compared to actual varnish, but I don't do anything involving any varnish until the end because
Yeah.
I don't want to mess with that at all. I don't want it to like pull up or activate anything in layers previous. And I don't really know how retouch varnish works, but I assume it has something to do with actual varnish.
Yeah.
So
So I have used retouch varnish once. So here's the theory on why you
good Eric.
it's a good Eric question,
Yeah.
but I think I know the answer to this.
good.
So retouch varnish is nothing different than like a watered down regular varnish. And the problem with that is a when you apply a varnish at all, you do risk the danger that when you go to do a final varnish, if you're using the same varnish, is that final layer of varnish can reactivate the previous layer of varnish. And that's because all varnish is, I use the analogy of sugar water because La agua con azúcar is because it's just a resin and a solvent that will dissolve that resin, right? So imagine if you put um, a layer of retouch varnish down, right? So the water evaporates or the solvent evaporates, and you're just left with this kind of like sugary candy shell. And then you paint on top of it in a bunch of places, but some is left open. And then you go back and apply more like sugar water to it. It's going to redissolve the previous layer of sugar. So that's going to then bring up all those paint layers. So that's the danger in that. If you're super smart about the chemistry of it and you use like a stronger retouch varnish and then you're using a weaker varnish, that could theoretically work. But I don't like thinking about that stuff. So I'm assuming you're asking about a retouch varnish because you'd like to be able to see the painting all at once while you're painting. Is that correct, Rajneesh?
Yes, yes, yes.
Okay. So if you're looking to like see the whole painting all at once while you're painting, I would not recommend a retouch varnish because it is like theoretically removable. Now, there's a bunch of people who would probably say don't do this, but one option you could do is doing more of like an oiling in, where a really thin application of oil so it refreshes those colors. And then while that oil is still wet, you should be painting into it as much as you possibly can. Right. So it's kind of taking that little thin layer of oil and then including it in that next paint layer. Right. So then you're not leaving just like oil and then like painting on top of that. That's like not great. It's not like illegal. The world's not going to explode, but it's not, you're going to increase yellowing in the paint layers and it's not great structurally.
Yeah, it could increase cracking.
It could increase cracking. But if you oil in, but then you're putting paint into that oil, like thin layer, then that's going to be easier. Another option could be, so I do this sometimes when I can't, like I want to see what's going on and see if I need any final touches, is I'll make sure the paint's super dry. I'll use solvent to kind of refresh the appearance, but that solvent evaporates, nothing's left on it. So I can kind of take note of what spots need additional work, and then I can go in and oil in that section and paint into it, type of thing. So I did also paint on retouch varnish. Listen, if you want to try and use retouch varnish, again, the world's not going to end. You might have some issues or you might not even like it. I felt like it was actually kind of plasticky to paint on top of. Like it didn't feel like I was painting on top of more paint. I was painting, I felt like I was painting on plastic and I didn't love the feeling. Yeah. So, I mean, I think that's kind of what we all kind of do
I
is,
mostly do the second thing,
yeah,
where you let it dry and then put solvent on it and look at it that way.
yeah.
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 Does that answer your question, Rajneesh? Did you need any elaboration on that?
Like it's good for me right now, but like I just wanted to know like if I have an exhibition coming up and I have just finished the painting and now it's like the darks are dulling down because I have not applied the varnish. I cannot apply it right now. So
Right.
what can I do for in that situation?
You need to go back in time and plan better.
Okay, okay.
Yeah, no,
Sure.
that's a very common thing. But what you could do is I do know artists who assume they're gonna varnish right before the show. Like they ship everything and they say like
Yeah, yeah.
when I
Yes.
get there, I'm just gonna quickly varnish them before the show starts. Because varnish is just solvent based, so it's gonna dry pretty fast. It'll dry.
Parts, yeah.
Yeah, so you could do that, but it's kind of important. Oil painting is a lot of thinking ahead, right? So
Yes, definitely.
yeah, you've got the show coming up. You should be planning it for those paintings to be done at least a month in advance. And if you paint thickly or use a lot of slow drying mediums, plan for those paintings to be 2 months in advance done. So you have time to like let it dry and then varnish.
I guess like in
Sure.
your situation though, like if you have space heaters, like you can put your paintings by the space heaters, try to like increase the quickness of the drying time artificially.
Yeah.
Like, do what you
Good
can.
point.
Yeah, like get it in a hot room and really kind of bake it. And then you should be able to, depending on the pigments, do the solvent thing if it's dry enough. Because if you think you're able to varnish it, you should be able to put solvent on it. Because like otherwise
Mhm.
you'd be pulling up. If it's not dry enough, the varnish will be pulling up paint anyway. So
Yeah.
the solvent actually can help prepare the painting to be varnished too by making it more porous. So just kind of like if you're down to the wire, I'd be just like getting a space heater if you don't have one and just trying to like up the drying time.
Yeah.
Yeah. Or reduce the drying time.
Put it in the sun.
Yeah. Put it in your car
Okay.
if it's hot out. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I would agree.
Okay. Yes.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yep, no problem.
Yeah.
Thanks for the question. Okay, Catherine asks, what support do you recommend for your students for oil studies? Now, Catherine, can you just kind of elaborate on, do you mean
Like emotional
um,
support.
like emotional support?
No, not emotional.
No, like,
Like a, versus like, for example, I like the like an artifacts, surface for sure. But and I've made the mistake of doing something really cheap and then making a nice painting and then regretting it. But at the same time, like, is there a canvas panel or anything that's not paper, but that is something that is maybe a little bit more affordable for like a boot camp kind of study, or things that what do you recommend for your students,
yeah,
like, in that regard?
talking about
Yeah,
that.
we were just talking
Yeah,
about
no, that's a great question. Do you like what
What do you-
what for if okay, if you have a masterpiece, you know what you're gonna use.
Yeah.
What do you use for like, I just want to try this experiment. I don't want to buy a really
Yeah.
expensive panel for this.
But then what if it turns out well?
Yeah, that's the
Yeah.
hardest part because I
Yeah.
like, for example, for my ala prima, I've been using the old paper,
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
and the last two ala primas that I did, I really liked them, and I did them on paper. So like now,
Yeah.
oh my God, I should have done like on
Yeah.
a panel or something.
Yeah.
So I think it all depends of your budget. I think because
Yeah.
I think like using really good material is always the
Yeah.
best way to go. So I recommend, like, I like using ACM panels just like with like all ground.
Yeah.
You can do that, and I think you can prepare them. That's a lot of, like, it's super cheap.
That's like the cheapest thing.
Yeah, that's the
probably.
cheapest thing, but like
Yeah.
it requires a little bit of work too,
Yeah.
because you have to like do the layers, and that's, I think for me that's the kind of like the best way to go in my personal opinion.
It's like it's inexpensive, but it does require a little bit of prep.
Mhm.
Yeah, but it turns out like a good surface to
Yeah.
like have a good piece.
Yeah, and it could be like it could end up as a masterpiece and you'd be okay with it.
Yeah.
Yeah, so for me that's the best way, but
Yeah.
that's what I do.
What do you do?
That's that's what I was just thinking about yesterday. And I was like, wow, I should do that. But I'm not gonna do that right now. So then it's like, because I'm like, maybe when I have more time,
Yeah.
I'll kind of do that. That would be ideal. That is the ideal thing
Yeah.
though. Get some ACM, cut it into smaller pieces, and then prime it. But I found some canvas that I forgot that I bought on sale like 5 years ago when I was just unpacking yesterday. And so I was like, oh, that could be good because then it's like I can cut that up and tape it. And if it turns out well, I could glue it to some ACM.
That's
It's
true.
not always like
Mhm.
that cheap, but if you can find it,
Yeah. So maybe, okay, so one option would be the ACM and oil ground.
Mhm.
Another option would be to get a roll of canvas that is cheaper, and then you kind of cut to the size you need at the moment. And if
Yeah.
it turns out great, you can glue it down to an ACM later. Another option would be I kind of keep my eye out for, now I obviously love artifacts for like most of the pieces, and I usually get pieces that are too big just in case. And then when I cut them down, I usually end up with like little scraps of the artifacts, which is, part of what I like about them in the ACM is that you can cut them down so easily. So if I know the size I'm gonna need, or if I just want to have a bunch of canvases in my studio, I'll either look for those Raphael panels and just get a bunch of those on sale, or I found like this ridiculous sale at Jerry's, which was like these, I think they're called like New York Central Art Supply, and they were really smooth canvas, but I tried painting on it once and it was horrible. And it was super cheap. It was like 3 panels for $5 or something, and they were just a standard size, 9 by 12. So I found it was actually, if you can find really cheap canvas that you like either the texture of or it's like relatively low texture, I just took titanium alkyd based paint. So Winsor Newton makes a Griffin line, which is super fast drying and it's titanium. So I take a like a spatula squeegee and I just put like a new surface on the canvas. So because I was like, well, I hate painting on these, but I don't want to throw them out and they were cheap. So I just took titanium alkyd based paint and squirted a bunch on there and squeegeed it super smooth and did that 1 or 2 times. It's kind of like the oil priming, but like super cheap and easy. And that was actually a pretty decent surface to paint on and very cheap.
Thank you. That's great.
Okay. But no, that's a good question because I think we all it's we're doing like working with a portrait model just to try out some new processes with fan brushes and other things. And you don't want to use like expensive materials. But sometimes I will say when you're kind of using materials you don't care that much about, you're willing to take more risks.
Yeah.
So sometimes you may find that what you do on those pieces are actually you like them because you weren't as precious with them. So I do think it is worthwhile to get some surfaces that you
Don't care.
don't care about because you may find that you can learn a lot more on those because just psychologically you're less precious about them.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
Because it definitely is a budget thing for me most of the time at this point. But yeah, thank you so much.
I think Brittany was talking about, I was kind of delirious when we did the portrait thing the last time,
Yeah.
but she said something about priming the oil paper so that it was like not as horrible to work on.
Yeah.
So
Oh,
that-
yeah. So it's kind of like you could do that if you got the oil painting
Yeah.
paper and then maybe did the alkyd
just so it wasn't as gross.
surface or
Yeah.
shellac. I've heard somebody
Oh,
use the
yeah.
shellac.
That's what Cesar Santos used to do. I don't know if he
Oil painted
does it,
paper with
like,
shellac.
yeah, he prepared the paper
Mm.
with not, I think it was some ground, but that's what he used to do.
Okay.
That would be a
That-
cheap.
Yeah, that would be cheap
Yeah.
Yeah. Just,
and easily cut downable.
Yeah. Yeah, I've heard people use like matte medium underneath, and which I figured is kind of an acrylic thing, right? So,
Yeah.
okay.
Okay. Oh, and then Catherine, you also said alizarin and phthalo green for darks. You know what? Phthalo green has recently made an appearance on my palette.
Mm.
Don't use a ton of phthalo green, but alizarin and phthalo green would probably be a great dark because it'd be neutral together, but still have some like life to it.
and compliments.
Compliments, yeah.
Yeah, I just recently used it on a painting I did in a class that was another, anyway, it created a very rich dark without, because the umber, if it either sinks in or, because of its earth base is not as deep. And
Yeah.
that one, I found it really, I loved it.
Do you find
Effective.
but it's probably still a little slow drying because both of those are relatively slow drying.
Yeah, but it was in background. It was actually in a class to copy a painting that had a very dark background. It was dark brown, so I did use some umber at some point, but over it I did that, and because those are transparent, it kind of made it rich, and then I wasn't going over the background again with anything, and so for that kind of thing, I thought it really very effective and pretty.
Great. I mean, I'll have to try that because I think I have a Sorry phthalo green, so I'll have to try that. Okay, the next question is from Paul. I paint my first layer and I paint it thinly and I knock it all down with the makeup brush, as we've done before. A week later, it has small bumps, maybe 5 of them at most. I pick them off with a fingernail and pretend it never happened. What is this and is it avoidable? I have no idea.
It's probably dust.
So it could be dust. What it also could be, what did you say?
A little drops of water.
Water, you think?
I don't know.
Is it, Paul, is the bump seeming like it comes from underneath or is that it looks like it's on the surface?
It looks like it's a defect in the paint.
Hmm.
And
So it's
you didn't notice it when you originally knocked all the,
right, it was not there at that point. It sort of grows.
what surface are you using?
ACM,
What's the ground?
gambling oil ground.
So, okay, so one thing could be like the only thing I'm thinking of is if you didn't notice them when you painted it, I don't think it's the paint. Because one question would be like, are there dried bits in your paint?
Yeah.
Right? So that says no dried bits because you don't see them when you're done.
Or if you're using like, I mean, it wouldn't be that. I was going to say Rublev has pigment particle sizes that are different than most, like they have, but it wouldn't be that.
But you would
horrific.
see
I
them.
would see it then.
Yeah. So the only thing I could think of is either okay, the other option would be which I would come in and I'd be like, there's this weird spot in my paint that I definitely know wasn't there. And it's not like it turns out like I had moths. Moths.
Oh, moths.
Where because they
Yeah.
they come in and then they're like
Yeah.
against the paint and then they
That's
fly
true.
off. So like
Yeah.
okay,
Bugs
I
seem
would
attracted to
so
oil
yeah,
paint.
so I would suggest trying to replicate it, but like that in a container that nothing can get onto.
Okay.
So that's or does this only happen with your first layer?
I think so.
So the only other thing I could think of is could there be an issue with the ground that is like once it's like kind of covered is releasing something? This is weird.
How big is the bump?
Yeah, like how big is the bump?
Yeah.
Tiny, tiny.
Yeah. I that would be my only concern is like maybe it's something that's like once and are you preparing the panel yourself or are you buying it?
Preparing it.
So I don't know, maybe is it possible there's the ACM, there's the ground, and then there's the paint. And if you're only seeing it on that first layer, I'm feeling like theoretically there could be something that once there's a layer on the oil ground, maybe there's something happening with the ground itself that's like kind of coming coming coming. You get what I'm saying, Paul, right?
Yeah.
When you pick it off with your fingernail, do you see the ACM or do you see like the
question.
ground? Thanks.
None of it. I pick it off, and what I pick off is paint.
Uh-huh.
And what I see underneath,
under that little dot, is it still paint?
still paint.
I think it's probably dust.
It's probably dust
Or
or a
moss.
bug. Or a bug. I would try the container experiment and then report back to us.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
If it's paint underneath, I would agree that it's not
The ground.
because if you could see the ground, I'd say it's the ground. If you could see the metal, it could still be the ground.
Yeah, because that never happened to me before.
Yeah.
I get like I get little bumps and stuff after I paint, but it's just like dust.
Yeah.
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 I would try that.
Or when you use the dry paint to paint.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's usually with students, it's like dried bits because they've tried to save the paint too long. Okay. Paul, did you need us to elaborate on anything else there? Or does that cover it? Okay, great. All right. So Patricia says, I live in flat.
In a flat.
Oh, basically live in an old building and the floors are wonky, same. Any suggestions on how to compensate for that in terms of having like the uneven floor? Is that what you mean, Patricia?
Yeah, it's the floors here in the are they not only kind of slope up and down, but they kind of wave. You know what I mean? So so I was wondering if I should, have the floor ripped up and try to level it off, or if there is some other less expensive um, solution if I'm like trying to work site size or comparative or whatever, or if Does it really matter all that much?
Hi, Pat. I've long time.
Hi, Jess, how you doing?
How are you? Nice to hear your voice. I mean, the floors in my studio are really wonky,
Yeah, mine
actually,
are too.
and it's really annoying. I mostly just try to stand where that isn't happening. That's just like so it's like I'll stand a little over or something like that, and then you can like level your setup.
Yeah, leveling the setup, I typically would use, well, here we use a lot of cardboard.
Cardboard. Yeah.
We use a lot
Okay.
of cardboard to, so
Mhm.
even just like under the easels, um,
Mm-hmm.
or like construction shims. You
Yeah.
could probably use construction shims, cardboard, foam core. Because I even sometimes, even when I like turn my easel, because I have like two setups on either side of a single easel, where I'll
Mhm.
kind of angle the setup a little bit, or angle the easel towards the setup that I'm working on. And even that throws the level off because the floors are so wonky here. So I always have a level at hand so that whatever for setups, I use like if I have like a surface that things are sitting on, I try to make that level, right? And then everything sitting on it should be level. But my actual cabinets are not level because they're sitting directly on the floor. So
Okay.
a lot of cardboard, a lot of shims, a lot of finagling, and just using your level on a regular basis.
Yeah, it's not really the setup that I'm concerned about. I mean, I can obviously level the easel and the setup, and that kind of thing. It's really when I stand back,
Mm.
when I'm going back and taking my views or measurements or whatever from 5 or 6 feet back, and the floor level may be very different. So I'm wondering, should I just kind of ignore that and get on with it? Like you suggested, Jess, is I suppose trying to find a sweet spot on the floor and somewhere and just consistently use that. I mean,
There's a
that's what I'm concerned about is when, stepping back.
there's a dip in my studio that's like really annoying. And so I just like avoid that if I'm doing a setup there. Like
Mhm.
I don't want us to have one foot in the dip and one foot not in the dip because then you will be kind of looking at it
Yeah.
weirdly.
Or you could wear one shoe,
My
one
boot.
shoe, a boot.
Okay.
If you're owning the house, if you are the owner and you're like,
Antonio's like, rip it out. Yeah.
no, no, like you
Hire Antonio to rip out your
In
floor.
Edinburgh.
no, you have to rip it out. You can just build a platform on top of that if you want
Yeah,
it like to
true.
be like really level. If you're planning to stay for a while in that area, in that location, I think the best way it will be just to build a very like level platform. Because if the floor is like really, really bad, I think that can be even like I don't know, like bad for your
Yeah.
I don't know, like
Body.
your body,
Yeah.
because maybe you're gonna be like out of uncomfortable.
Yeah.
So I think just like maybe building a platform will be the best solution. You don't have to rip the floor, just like build it on the station that you have. That way you can just like be super comfortable.
And then also there's also the potentially a question maybe under that where it's like, does it matter if the floor isn't level and like you're looking at your setup and it's like higher or something than you're lower or something like that? I feel like that
Yeah.
doesn't matter as long as you like what you're seeing as
Mhm.
you look at it
Mhm.
personally.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, thank you, Antonio. I had thought about a platform. Um, but I was just wondering what people do in practice. Um, if you can't, for whatever reason, have the platform or fix the floors or whatever. Okay. Okay. Thank you.
Okay, we have Raj Ness has another question. I want to do a 4-color glaze on top of each other. What mediums should I use if I want to do this fast? And how much time should I wait to apply the next glaze? Um, let's see. What medium? Okay, so let's just start with like the concept of glazing. So, if anybody's not aware of what glazing is, mostly what Rajnesh is asking is how do you work in transparent like a glaze is a transparent layer in which you are able to slightly see or really see the previous layer underneath it. And so we kind of mentioned that earlier when we were talking about the shadows and like using a dark umber and then putting another value on top of it thinly to get those kind of complex colors rather than a flat mixed color. So in terms of a medium in which you want to do this quickly, so fast drying mediums, there's lots of options for fast drying mediums. What would you say your go-to fast drying mediums are?
I mean, I guess I probably wouldn't glaze with a fast drying medium because I don't really want to be putting it kind of potentially already unstable layers, depending on how you're doing your glazes on the top of the painting. So if I were trying to do it quickly, I'd be thinking about what pigments I was using. So I'd be opting for faster drying pigments and then maybe using like a Venetian medium has glass and solvent in it, and it's not as like it's not like an alkyd that you'd be putting on the top or something like that. But that's just me. So I probably wouldn't be putting any like pale drying oil or dryers on the top personally.
Okay. So you're
I'm gonna opt out of
let's say you had to do 4 thin layers.
Yeah.
You would be choosing for the first couple layers just more transparent pigments
Well, I guess
or fast drying pigments.
faster
Sorry?
drying. I wouldn't be like if I was like in a time crunch, I wouldn't be using ultramarine and like alizarin and being like, oh, I gotta glaze this
Okay.
and like let it dry quickly. If because it's just not really gonna dry that quickly. So it'd be like depending on the situation, I don't know. Like yeah, I mean like
I think it also does depend on the
it
colors
does
that you're
depend on the
using.
color. Yeah. But I don't know. I guess so I mean you found like with the hair in your
Oh,
self-portrait, it's
yeah,
like
don't use dioxazine purple
if you're
if you
trying to do
need
it quick.
it to dry in under 2 months.
Yeah.
I learned that lesson very well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's just that's a little glazing is a little tricky with that. I feel like
Yeah.
because people want the effects of
The
glazing, but I think
I
it's
think the problem here is that you want it done fast.
fast. Yeah.
So if you want it done fast, so what about you, Antonio? Do you have any mediums that you're like, this is what I use if I want things to dry really fast and it also, I mean, anything you add to your paint is gonna,
Oil, but it's not
Yeah.
that fast. But
right.
yeah.
So there's anytime you add anything to your paint, it's going to increase transparency. So no matter what medium you add, it will encourage transparency to some degree and to any degree. So in terms of the fast part, what would be if do you have a fast drying medium that you're a fan of?
No, I'm very, very classic, very like I don't like really put like a lot of new things in my paintings because I'm always afraid of like well if I'm like just like experimenting then maybe like an alkyd uh base medium but in my own process I just try to like take my time to like let it dry so that's how I like to do so that way I don't rush
Yeah.
so I never had to like add to my own paintings something to accelerate the drying time so I
Yeah.
just put it next to a heater. That's what I do,
Yeah.
and like just wait.
Yeah. So planning once again has entered the chat.
But epoxide oil
Yeah.
is a sturdier. It has the consistency and strength of stand oil, but dries like ever so slightly
Yeah.
faster.
Yeah, I think that's a good solution.
That
So
one,
epoxide oil. So epoxide oil is good paint, but good paint film adds strength to your paint.
yeah.
You don't want to any medium. You don't want to overuse. So epoxide oil, but it doesn't dry like
It's not
insanely
that
fast.
It's just like faster than
Faster.
some others.
Yeah.
Um,
I would also say so. I'm a fan of there's walnut alkyd medium. So
Walnut. I currently use walnut and liquid, so like
okay,
sometimes Vincent Newton liquid.
yeah, so liquid and gelkid are very similar. So gelkid, Gelkid is this is Gamblin's Alkyd medium. And with it's when we talked earlier about creating surfaces that you want to work on, I said, oh, sometimes I'll take an alkyd based titanium paint like Winsor Newton's Griffin line, and I'll just put a layer on the surface to make it better. So that paint is made with an alkyd medium, and Gamblin's alkyd medium is called Gelkid, which is the same thing, and it's pretty much this. It's very similar to Liquin. It's insanely fast drying. Okay. It does, and Erica's kind of chimed in on this. I'm not a chemistry expert, but the alkyds do have a pretty decent paint film strength, but you can't overdo any of these. So rather than adding medium to my paint in a first layer, if I have like a super intense deadline, I did this earlier this year with some panic paintings. And instead of adding medium, I just used those alkyd-based paints for a first layer. They are naturally very transparent. So what you could do, because it's just the proportions of the pigment versus the binder. So because they're more naturally transparent, you could just use a couple layers of those alkyd-based paints, which will dry very, very fast. And then your final, maybe third layer and then fourth layer using just paint or just paint with a little bit of linseed oil. Like that's going to be faster drying in general. It's going to retain the fat over lean. And that might be faster. Another thought is you could also, no, I'm not going to go there. So yeah.
I guess it would be, although one thing with the Galkid thing is that's assuming he doesn't have other layers of paint down.
Yeah, that's starting from scratch.
That's starting from scratch.
I'm not putting Gelkid or any of these alkyd based layers on top of anything I've already painted.
Unless it was another.
Does that make sense, Rajneesh?
Yes.
Okay, yeah, you gotta start that stuff at the very beginning. So I had to finish paintings in like a week or two. So I did like first layer alkyd based paints, or cut my slow drying paints with the alkyd based paints. And then I did I only did 2 layers mostly on my panic paintings. But if you're intentionally trying to do 4 different layers, then I would do like alkyd based paint only, alkyd based paint only, and then maybe alkyd with regular paint mixed in thinly. And then the final one, you can kind of do anything. But if you want it fast, epoxide oil or something.
And yeah, Venetian medium is kind of nice. It's not super fast drying, but like it's not a dryer, but it's nice to glaze with. And it does have, like glass speeds up drying time a little bit. Solvent obviously
gives a nice translucency too.
Yeah, it's really nice.
Do you like the Venetian?
Yeah.
All right, does that answer your question, Rajneesh?
Oh, and the pigments. Oh,
yeah,
think about what. I think that's like one of the more important.
Yeah, because there are like some replacement for like alizarin. You have the alizarin permanent that dries a little bit faster, I think.
Oh yeah, that one still dries pretty slow. But
or you got like you've got Prussian that dries way faster than ultramarine.
Yeah, like always opt for the faster drying pigment.
Yeah.
Or even cut it. I mean, with glazing it's a little hard, but you can put like a little bit of burnt umber into whatever to like help it dry quicker.
And actually the other addition to your question was how much time should I wait to apply the other glaze? It depends on what you're doing. So if with the alkyd stuff, if it's just alkyd based paints, I could probably paint on top of it within 2 days.
It also depends on how warm it is.
Depends on how warm it is, how cold it is, how humid it is,
what the
pigment it is.
Yeah.
Yeah, and how much he applied.
How much medium you put in it. Yeah, so it's really variable. You kind of have to like test parts of it if you're, trying to rush things, but
it won't be
plan ahead.
Yeah.
Us oil painters need to plan ahead.
Yeah, at the end painting is a lot of experimentation.
Yeah.
And we can say a couple things, but like you're gonna encounter like maybe different things.
Yeah. But alizarin.
the pigment choices are
You can
a
add
big
the
deal.
cobalt pigment to help things dry quicker. That it's very like low tinting strength, but is it faster drying? So that I've done that before.
All right. Any other questions on that specific topic, Rajneesh?
No, that's all. Thank you.
Good luck. Okay, and then Paul was suggesting if you use ACM, they have a lot of offcuts.
Yeah.
Or if you do use ACM, you use a lot of offcuts. And then he also said Piedmont Plastics is nationwide and it's only $2 per square inch or square foot in bulk.
Okay.
And somebody asked if you can cut ACM with a knife or a power tool. It's super easy. I have a YouTube video. You just score it on the canvas side or the side with the surface on it, score it a bunch of times, and then just it snaps, and it's super easy to modify.
But it has to be the 1/8 of an inch.
Oh, you have to use the 1/8. Yeah, make sure you get the one. If you're gonna try, I have cut the honeycomb one that Artifacts
really
have. It's really
That
awkward.
was the first time I cut a panel, and I
Yeah.
was like, "This is a lot harder than people
Yeah.
thought it was going to be."
Yeah, I don't recommend that. Okay. Yeah, and then cobalt violet dark dries super fast, so that's a pigment you could add, which also is very transparent too.
Gambling.
Okay. I mean, we have other questions that people had submitted in response. Are there other people who have questions here, who are physically present,
Active.
who are actively here? If there's additional questions, if you want to raise your hand or put them in the chat. If not, I can also go to the questions on the Instagram and that were submitted in advance.
I'm good, thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Let's see. I want to make sure Eric sent, did you send me? Sorry.
That
And
was such a
what?
no, just what it typed when you were trying to. Here's some coming in. Tips or
Oh, here we
inspiration
go.
on writing the dreaded artist bio.
Oh, okay. That's a
Yeah.
good question, because somebody else also, one of the Instagram questions was, what is an artist statement?
Yeah,
So I think these are both related. So
I have
writing the
Yeah.
artist so there's the artist bio and then there's the artist statement. So what do you guys have for your bios?
the bio is a little bit more just. Well, I think there could be like a long one and a shorter one, right? But
Yeah.
the bio is a little bit more just who are you?
Yeah.
I would say.
What's your story?
What's your story?
What's your background?
I think with any writing though, a tip I have is just
Yeah, she's a
to-
good writer. She's our resident writer.
Yeah, I do like writing. Although I'm very like robotic. Well, I mean, I'm not. Yeah.
In what way?
Well, we did this proposal and everyone I'm used to like I was in academia, so I'm like a little bit more just like this is the thing. And this was like more of a business thing, so it was a little more like
Okay.
like having to like where's the spice?
The-
Yeah, I'm like I don't do
The
that.
flavor.
Yeah.
I'm good at the flavor. You're better at the
Yeah,
structure.
right. You're like, how do we make this a little sexier? I'm like, I don't know. I think with writing in general, because it's so stressful and intimidating, it's good to like step away from your computer and step away from the formality of it and just like have a piece of paper and like without thinking about how you're writing it or what like what it sounds like or the organization. It's just a sort of like info dump, anything you can think of that might remotely pertain to what you're trying to write about without any trying to reduce any judgment on yourself. Because that's, I think, where people get in the way. They're like, I need to sit down, have my outline, and like write everything out, and it has to sound good. Where it's actually like, no, just sort of write things. And it, like if you're trying to kind of come up with the like idea of what I think it's hard to be like, what is my art about? Like, what do I feel my art is about? Yeah, like, how do I talk about it? That's a lot of pressure. So it's just like taking that off and going, like, what are things I care about? What are things I think about when I'm making art? What are things I've painted before? And just like without any format, kind of, yeah, brain dump that. Maybe like put on some music you like, or like light a candle. Like I don't know, really, it's like a vibe thing. Just
Yeah.
like kind of make it a
Well,
pleasant experience.
for bio, I'd say that would be
Yeah.
more artist statement.
That's more artist statement.
So
But,
I'd say
yeah.
because if we think,
Although I would say with bio in general too, people kind of want to go in and just like do it. And sometimes like people get really stressed about writing. And so it's sort
yeah.
of just like I always do the info dumping right
Oh,
away.
you're
I do
doing
it no
info
matter
dump
what.
that
Yeah.
includes both artist vibey stuff and
I
information
would
about
say
you?
that more that I do that approach no matter what I'm writing.
Okay.
So if it's something that's like, more not like inspiration based of the art, although you
Yeah.
do tend to really have to have a couple statements about like what your art is about in the bio. Like I feel like there's sometimes like they make work on
Yeah,
blah blah
okay.
blah,
Yeah.
like, and so like even that part can be intimidating, but
Yeah.
I think with any writing it's nice to just be like, I'm gonna just be like, born in Milwaukee, blah 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 blah, did this, did that, and then you go back and you go, okay, how do I make this like fit
Yeah.
together? I always recommend people start that way
Yeah.
because it really just like
At
there's
least you get the
Yeah.
raw material out.
if you're just like, this is raw data and it like you're like writing it and you're going, oh, this sounds so bad, you go, it doesn't matter, it doesn't
Yeah.
matter how it sounds,
Yeah.
because you're just like
You're just trying to
you're
collect
collecting
you're
everything.
collecting
It's data
the
collection.
data. Yeah.
So I think people don't do that enough.
Yeah.
So just because writing is so intimidating.
Yeah.
So that's like a good place to start, because then all of a sudden you have somewhere to pull from. You have things that then you might see kind of hanging together, or you'll go, oh, like, actually I do have more to talk about. And now you're editing, you're not like producing
Creating.
from
Yeah.
scratch. And that's like a whole different sort of thing. So do that to
Yeah.
start with, anyone writing ever. Unless, I mean, everyone's different, but I don't know.
Yeah, I just try to like read a lot of different
Yeah, that's a really good, yes.
bios and then like pick a little bit of
Yeah.
Yeah.
everything.
That's not
Yeah.
cheating. That's important. There's
Yeah.
a formula to it.
Yes.
There's a formula.
Like
Yeah.
very straightforward. Like,
Yes.
Yeah.
I like
Yeah.
this, I like this, I like
Yes.
this. So like at the end it's just like combining the same thing as painting. Like I like to pick a little bit of a lot of different artists,
Yeah.
and at the end you create your own based on maybe different ways of doing it.
That's
Yeah.
such a good point, because this type of writing, it's like a cover letter, it's like these other things. There are formulas for how it's done, and you'll see variations on it. You'll see variations in terms of like the type of artist, how advanced they are. Like compare yourself to maybe people that are at your stage and look at what they're doing for their bios. Like that's a really, really, really
Yeah.
important thing to do.
Yeah. I find that usually the bio, like a lot of galleries will use the bio as to kind of give their collectors or their buyers like a general idea of like, who is this person, right? Like what is their background or their education. So I typically personally include like where I grew up, any schooling that I did, yeah, basically like education, background, a little bit of like your journey through life. And try not to make it long. Nobody wants to read a huge essay, but like I'd say like two to three paragraphs max, but also have a one that's like one paragraph, because some galleries want all the information, some galleries just want like the little elevator pitch for the bio. And then the artist statement is a whole thing. So the kind of related to that same thing, that's kind of where I'd say put on some candles and try to like, because it's hard to talk about, like, and this is something that actually here at school that we try to make sure our instructors ourselves are actually comfortable doing. So we will often like do a little talk about our work. At one point we all did like a discussion about our work and each teacher presented about it, and we're encouraging students to do the same. And actually on Monday, Liasia, I didn't tell you this yet, but on Monday at like around 3:30 here at the school, any students that are here, Liasia just finished her graduation piece. It was a still life painting, and she's going to just do a little talk and Q&A about it, because I do think that's something really important for an artist to be able to do, is to figure out how to talk about your work. It's not that you have to be great at it right out of the gate, but it does require a brain dump of like, why are you making paintings? What do you make paintings about? And just throw it all down there and then edit. So that would be, and it is important to have, because I have a couple galleries that like, I don't love having to explain my paintings. I feel like they do enough for themselves. But I also realize that gallery owners are running a business in which they are, or museums, where they do need to, they want, some collectors do want to know the artist's intentions for things. And it can kind of give this new layer to view the work through, which isn't necessary, but some people like to have that. So have the ability to be able to like just give a little like elevator pitch about the work you make, why you make it, your general topics that you tend to, come back to over and over again, and that will evolve.
Yeah.
I readdress address that every year. Is I look at what my artist statement says, is it still valid? Do I want to add anything to my bio? I do think adding awards to like any big awards to your bio would be helpful too.
I think too, sometimes it feels like when you're emerging artist that there's no coherence to like, you're like, I don't feel like this anymore, but I used to feel like this, where it was like, I don't know, like what, I can't get a sense of what my art is about right now. Like I'm like making these things and they're sort of hanging together, but I'm not necessarily coming at it. And then I had a friend be like, I don't think that's really true. I think you're just like so new to what you're doing that you're not seeing it because you're so deep in it. You're not like seeing it with this cohesiveness. And it was kind of true because then when I sat down and I was thinking like, okay, I made this thing, whatever. This was at a time when I was also using different mediums and not painting as much, but it it did kind of hang together more, but I had to like do the brain dump thing and like think about certain pieces and just sort of like view them as this collection. And then you started to be like, what are things I care about? What are things, it just like you can't go straight to writing it. You have to do this like
Yeah.
introspection a little bit more. And when you do that more, you actually just start to see that in your own work more. And then it informs your work, I think. And like now at this point, it's been nice because I feel like I have things I'm thinking about all the time and that I'm trying to do with my work. And it is a little easier for me to like think about it. But early on, it can feel really intimidating and sort of like impostery a little bit
Yeah.
where you're like, I don't know, like I don't have any big idea, like like, I think that's a common feeling when you're like first starting out. So I think it's just like there's more there because if you're making from the heart, it's or like just making not from the heart, but just like from
Genuine.
yeah, like from
Genuine, yeah.
genuinely, like there is something there and you're just too deep in it. So you kind of have to just like not write about it formally yet, just
Yeah.
like
And
explore it.
it wouldn't hurt. So at the time when I was writing my first few iterations of my artist statements, and my bio, but mostly because the bio is a little bit more factual information, and the artist statement is a little bit more of like the like woo woo stuff, right?
Mhm.
And I had a friend of mine who's a poet, and now he doesn't necessarily, uh, know anything about how I'm doing my painting, but I think the other creatives seeing your work through a different lens. And so I said, here's kind of what I have now. Can you just like look at this and like tell me if there's any like, better ways of saying this that I feel like would be that you are seeing in my work, like the patterning of things, like because he's familiar with my work. And so I thought that was really interesting because getting an outside perspective from somebody can be really useful.
Yeah.
You're kind of blinded by how you feel about your own work, but somebody else might be able to give you a perspective that you never noticed before that then you maybe want to lean in on.
Yeah.
So, I mean, and now like especially with Jess being a good writer and being here and like, being able to bounce how it's written because I write very casually. I write the way that I speak. So sometimes if I want a little bit more of a professional vibe to it, we have each other to bounce it off of. But, don't be afraid to like tap into your community and
Yeah.
see what their thoughts are.
I always want other people to look at my writing before it goes out. Like multiple people, if possible, that have different perspectives, because everyone will interpret it a little differently. And you might have someone be like, oh, this was a little hard for me to understand. And it's like, oh, well, that's not ideal, right? Like, like, and that's just something that comes from showing other people your work before you put it out there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Was that helpful?
Yeah.
Sorry, I like talking about writing, so I get really like into it.
Jean, did that help with the artist bio? And I think that also covered the question that somebody gave us about the artist statement.
Yes, thank you so much. I was over here shaking my head, and I don't have my video on, so but that helped a lot. Brain dumps are good.
Yeah, and that's kind of where I feel like, if I don't know if everybody knows this, but we do have a school Discord that anybody is welcome to join. And there's people who, talk back and forth on that, and that's not a horrible place to say, like, what do you think of this artist statement? Or like, you know, not being afraid, or just like, can everybody show me what their artist statements are, or link their artist statements here so I can see what you guys are doing. So that would be probably useful. All right, next question. Okay, so Susan asked, can you varnish over sprayed retouch varnish? So Susan, we sort of talked about retouch varnish before. We don't know a ton about retouch varnish because we don't really use it. I only used it once, and I'm assuming you can, but I can't guarantee you what's going to happen depending on the varnish you use on
Yeah.
top of the spray
The
varnish.
risk is that any varnish over varnish, it will pull up the previous layer because it'll reactivate it.
Although I do have to say, so
Okay.
the limited palette cast painting that's out in the hallway,
Yeah.
I did try retouch varnish with, and then I varnished it and nothing happened.
Perfect.
But I don't know what
Yeah.
brands they were. I also just didn't like painting on top of the retouch varnish. So theoretically, you could try it. That's
No comment.
no,
Yeah.
that's an ask me anything question that I can't answer.
Ask Eric about.
Yeah. Lisa asked about the beautiful greenery behind us. Actually, anything in the school has mostly been adopted from other people getting rid of it. And then the upstairs office was leaving and they left this in the garbage. And so we took it.
It's fake.
It's fake.
Yeah.
But those are real. Did you
These
bring
are-
those in?
No.
I don't know somebody took them home over the summer and then brought them back. I don't know whose they are, but I love them. And so I just want more greenery here. Okay,
It
so
looks awesome.
oh, I just feel like it makes it look more homey.
Yeah.
This is our kind of kitchen green room. We're calling it the green room now.
Green room.
Todd's asking how interchangeable is burnt sienna, transparent red oxide, and terra rosa? Okay, so burnt sienna, so transparent red oxide and terra rosa are all mid-chroma earthy reds. Yes?
I've never used Terra Rosa.
I
so,
haven't either.
Yeah.
I think
I have used it.
yeah,
And they are pretty similar, I think.
similar.
Yeah.
Yeah, Terra Rosa and burnt sienna, I think, have a similar opacity.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But transparent red oxide is more
More transparent.
transparent.
Yeah.
I think a little more.
So they're semi-interchangeable depending on in what capacity.
Yeah, I love using transparent red oxide when I'm doing like well, I definitely that's one of the colors that I have in my palette for
Yeah.
portraiture. I really like it. But when I'm doing like a super quick alla prima, I like to add that to the shadows because I like to have my shadows transparent. So that's the reason why I add a little bit of that. But if you're adding the other two to the white, I think those are better for the thicker light moments of the skin.
Good point.
That's what I.
Because of the opacity of them?
Yeah.
They're kind of not chalky or
They are they're more earth pigmenty.
yeah.
Mhm.
The transparent red oxide, I think, is a
Like a chemical color. Yeah. Does that answer your question, Todd? Does that make sense? So is your question because you're like, I have one of these, but I've heard other people like to use these. Are they different? Are they is it worth buying them? Is that what you're asking?
Yeah, because I usually has transparent red oxide, and like Damon will say use burnt sienna, and I won't have it. And I'm wondering how close it is.
You know what? I do think having either burnt sienna or terra rosa would be worthwhile just because of its difference in opacity and like its mixing
Yeah.
qualities. Because I think
They
terra
feel
rosa
different.
goes a bit more pinky, and I think burnt sienna also goes maybe a little bit more pinky, whereas transparent red oxide goes very orange.
Yeah.
Yeah, those transparent red oxide is like the oddest one out of the three, I would say.
Yeah, my recommendation would be to do like a graduation of the color with the
Mhm.
white,
Mhm.
so just to see the possibilities of each one,
Yeah.
and then like just try to keep them. And I think this goes back to the having a palette that you really like, and then like stay with that,
Mhm.
and then like really get comfortable with that. Because at the end, if you go to one workshop, the artist is gonna recommend their own paintings, like the ones that they like. If you go to another workshop, they're gonna recommend their
Whole
palette.
new set.
So I think those three colors, I think they can work the same way because they can get like really nice skin colors,
Mhm.
but just like stay with one. And I don't think like moving from that one will change a lot your skin color. If you really like one, I think just stick with that one, because
Yeah.
I think definitely they are like pretty close when you're working with skin color.
Yeah, I just started using burnt sienna for the first time recently. And I was using this palette that was new to me, and it had burnt sienna on it and transparent red oxide. And the transparent red oxide was really useful for mixing darker shadow values and like
Mhm.
keeping it pretty dark and transparent, whereas I wasn't really using the burnt sienna in anywhere near the shadows because
Yeah, I
it's so
agree.
much more like earthy.
Yeah.
So those two feel like they can serve.
Two different purposes.
Yeah, but then I've also used the transparent red oxide just for like taking things like greens down a notch, like making them more neutral and less vibrant.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah, I found it worked with painting Aaliyah in the workshop she sat for the last couple of weeks.
Yeah.
It's a transparent red oxide.
Yeah. Yeah, they're all pretty versatile, but I think the biggest difference is the transparency.
Yeah.
So that might change how, if you use them in the shadows versus using them in the lights. It all depends on kind of the effects you're wanting to get.
All right, far out. Thank you.
Yep. All right. So Ed is asking, do you have any color mixing tips for painters who are colorblind? I especially struggle with reds and find it hard to see subtle color shifts in involving reds. That's a really challenging question. We do have a student here who is colorblind, and he does put a lot of he has a lot of structure with Troy. He puts a lot of structure on his palette so that he kind of puts railings on colors. So I would say that he does a lot of labeling of his palette. Right now he's doing our full palette cast painting. He just did finish up the limited palette, but he has to be really conscious, and he kind of has to just think theoretically about certain things. And if you have a hard time seeing the subtleties in those things, it's in a way you are working kind of blind if you're trying to go for more like representational naturalism. But I would argue that you may find that you're like, if you kind of work within your limitations where you just say, well, like I don't see those, so I'm not going to factor those in. You may find it actually gives your work part of its uniqueness. Like
Yeah.
it's you, like it's your language.
It's how you see the world.
It's how you see the world. And so I don't think you should do too much to try to wrestle your paintings into what works for other people. I think you should don't be afraid to like use additional, like use things in the reds, but just kind of make them look right for you. And that's really kind of all that matters, because how it's then received by other people, it's going to have its own unique fingerprint because of that. Does that make sense? So in a way, my tip is like, don't worry, I guess.
No, and
Um,
also once he masters the values,
yeah, the values.
like once the values are on the right point, I think that's gonna be more important, because
Yeah.
like if you see the masterpiece in I haven't seen it, but like last time we were like seeing it, online student is painting a part of the one that is at the harbor,
The grisaille.
the grisaille.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
You can make like a wonderful piece just working with black and white. So at the end, I think definitely don't worry too much about it, because that's something that like it's gonna be really really hard if you battle with like color. Even for us, sometimes like dealing with a lot of different elements,
Yeah.
it's really hard. So I would recommend to just like be systematic as the student that we have, but like just master values. I think that's gonna be more.
Yeah, because value is really doing all of the heavy lifting on form turning and how you read it. So you can have objects that are like, completely all pink that are not naturally that, or something like that, that look and make sense to us because the value relationships are right. And that's really kind of like the most important part, I think.
Yeah.
Does that answer your question, Ed? Sorry, like it's not like a very specific answer, but making sure that you're just, if you have control of your values, color almost doesn't even matter if you control your values.
Yeah, it does. Thanks a lot.
Okay, good. I'm gonna grab a couple questions. So you're welcome to either raise your hand or add additional questions to the chat. I think we covered everything that's currently in there. But what we can do is I'll address a couple of the questions that were submitted in advance. We already talked about what is an artist statement. Somebody also asked, is there value to being a member of art societies, etc.? And I'm assuming that means like Oil Painters of America or local art societies and things like that. Are either of you part of any of the societies or organizations?
No.
No? Okay. I am not either. I think there is value in them in some capacity. I think depending on where you are in your career and your current showing opportunities. So, art societies that are kind of like either national or global, like Oil Painters of America or American Allied organizations, I think they're great for structured opportunities to show your work into places. It also can act as a benchmark for yourself in which if you apply 1 year and if they don't allow you in, then you have a kind of a goal of like, I'd like to get my work to a point at which this art society accepts me into the membership. And then I can start showing in their maybe annual shows at Salmagundi or at a museum. So there's art societies that are kind of those like online organizations do offer their main benefit, I would say, is uh, the organization provides either online opportunities to show, in-person opportunities to show, and there are member-only exhibits. And so they also might offer like non-member opportunities to show, but they're mostly member-only opportunities. There's also here in Boston, there's an art society called the Copley Society of Art. They are mostly for local artists. And I would say the same thing. They have a gallery on Newbury Street. So the opportunity to be able to show within a gallery on Newbury Street is really hard. But if you're accepted into this organization, you're able to show guaranteed on Newbury Street in their small works show and in their all members show. They also offer additional opportunities for you to submit to, but if you're looking to have kind of a foothold in your city or a guaranteed place that if you're a member you get to show with, those are, I think, art societies can be valuable. But it doesn't, they're not 100% necessary, I would say. I am actually part of Copley Society. I also I really appreciate the new director there and the vision she has for creating community within the city of Boston. And so I view my membership as also a way to, bring funds into that organization that I think is doing good things in the city.
And also theoretically, like an active in-person art society might be a good way to like meet other artists and
Yeah,
just
networking.
networking and like because it can be so isolating, especially if you're like working in a home studio or a studio alone. That might be a good place to meet people, which is important, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. The networking I think is the networking and just meeting people and developing relationships. And I find that the larger organizations like Oil Painters of America or American Women Artists, they don't have maybe the same opportunities unless you kind of go to the physical openings, but they do offer like national shows to show in, right? They might have a show out in Denver, they might have a show in Austin or something. So that's a great way to get your work into different cities. So I do think that the art societies do have value. I think the local ones tend to be, you're going to feel those impacts a little bit more closely because, like Jess was saying, with the personal connection, and just being like having a reason to like leave the studio and get out of the house and see other work in person. So I at one point was also a member of a place called the St. Botolph Club here in Boston, and it was an art focused group within the fellowship. And I met some really amazing artists who are, I now consider some of my closest friends, who aren't necessarily painters. One of them was the poet that I talked about earlier. Um, Really cross-pollinating with different creatives in the city to me is something I really enjoy and has kind of opened up additional opportunities for me. So I do think those in-person experiences can really elevate like how you know, relate to your own artwork in many ways and give you additional perspective. Again, if you guys want to put any additional questions in the chat, I'll keep going with online Instagram questions, or raise your hand if you have a question that you want to add to. Let's see. Oh, somebody asked about, so we're all obviously teachers at the Academy of Real Estate Boston, and somebody was asking about financial assistance. So the only financial assistance that we as an atelier are able to provide is we do have a scholarship that we do every year, in which we invite one or two people to begin our program tuition free for the first year. So that scholarship opportunity is open right now. It's going to be, I believe the deadline is February 15th. And it applies to anybody who has not attended our school before. And it doesn't matter what your background is. It doesn't matter how old you are, how young you are, what your experience level is. It is open to anybody of any skill level, just like we are in general.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, and actually, we have one of our star scholarship students, Antonio. Can you just like say a little bit about what you felt like your first year was like with us, like in terms of getting the scholarship and then just kind of diving in here?
Well,
Had you known about us before, like before the scholarship
yeah,
came up, or
yeah.
what was that like?
Basically, what uh, I always wanted to attend an art school since I was in my country. So I'm like I came from El Salvador in 2013, but I my English was like really really bad. I didn't like speak any English, and then like but I like started following you guys like 3 years before I apply, but I wasn't like really, really like confident to come in because I felt that my English wasn't good enough to get into the school. The second was I was a little bit intimidated by like uh the artwork that the students were doing at that time. But then I came and then everything was like totally different that I was expected because everyone was very helpful. Everyone was very uh, I don't know, like it was like a family. So like the first year I tried to like really really take advantage of the scholarship because it's only 1 year, and then I tried to do like as much assignments as I could, and it was really really great because like for me it definitely was like a dream coming true. My dream since I was a kid was to like definitely be an artist. um so like this opportunity definitely changed
Yeah.
my like life completely because it like opens a lot of different possibilities. Like the networking,
Mm-hmm.
like being part of a community is a really, really like good element of I think growing as an artist.
Mm-hmm.
So like definitely like getting the scholarship for me was like a before and after.
Yeah.
Yeah. So and then like Julie asked me one day, "Can you come into my office?" And she said, "We want you to be an instructor." And oh my God, like
That was an easy choice for us.
yeah. And then like, oh my God, no, you. I wasn't prepared, but then like I like start teaching, and it's been very very helpful because when you're teaching, you're forced to remember everything and then like try to explain it to students with different backgrounds. Sometimes like some people have different levels of experience, so you have to like be in their own mind sometimes, like
Yeah.
really really try to explain like the basis of it we teach here. And yeah, I think that's a very like short
Yeah.
description of my experience here.
Yeah, and so not only was Antonio a scholarship student, right before him was Eric,
Mm-hmm.
who is also now a teacher. He's our main online instructor. Those of you who take the online classes and online workshops know how he's got this super professional setup that he's working from at home and teaching the online program and doing these amazing demos and workshops. He was a scholarship student. Antonio was very easy to realize, like he got the information, and he's a very good instructor, and we get feedback all the time on how much they like his his input on their projects. And I think so. A lot of our scholarship students do tend to graduate into becoming instructors. Two of our training instructors right now, they were both our scholarship students, I think, from last year, Sophie and Kara. 2 years ago.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, and so so if you know of anybody who might be interested in becoming a scholarship student, we look for people who want to be a part of a community, like you were saying.
Mhm.
We're looking for people, we don't necessarily need you to be an amazing artist. That's our job, to make you an amazing artist. But you don't already have to be skilled to apply for the scholarship here. We're looking for people who really have a passion for this, know what they want to get out of this, are looking, thinking long term. And a lot of those types of personalities end up also becoming great candidates to teach as well. So if you know of anybody, or if you yourself want to apply, that I believe is open until February, and there's no fee to apply. So that's the only opportunity for financial assistance. Unfortunately, we are not able to do like government loans and things like that because we're not technically accredited. But we do have the scholarship opportunity for first year students.
I think too, that question was also kind of just general, like how do you find out about art scholarship stuff? There's also the New England Art News thing, and
Okay.
he's always outlining, I don't remember his name because Michael Rose.
Oh, Michael Rose.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, that's true.
Yeah, like he always has, and a lot of that is like national.
Michael, I'll give a shout out to Michael Rose at
doing
New
great.
England Art News.
Appreciate the work that he's doing.
He's doing great work.
Yeah.
Talk about community builder.
Seriously, like really, really useful newsletter that goes out weekly, I think. And I think a lot of the financial stuff he puts in there there's regional stuff and there's national
stuff,
Yeah.
yeah.
So that would be a good thing to subscribe to for people looking for like grant opportunities and stuff.
And if you're looking for atelier specific funding, the two opportunities there's three opportunities that I know of. One is the Art Renewal Center scholarship, but they usually are looking for students who are kind of already inserted into an atelier. And then there's believe it or not, it's through the Cowboy Museum. It's called the Stacy Scholarship. And they do give funding. They do give scholarships for people attending any school in which representational art is the focus. And then there's also the Green Shields, which is very competitive though. And I think they probably want to see that maybe you're already inserted into an atelier. Okay, we got some more questions in the chat. Okay, so Alessandro is asking, Is there an atmosphere, saturation, and edge hierarchy when painting? Painting from life is a direct connection in observation, but how can one control this through hue, value, and chroma all together when drawing and painting out of your head? It's a lot of balls juggling in the air. I agree.
Yeah.
How do you control this? Oh, that's a pretty loaded question. Okay, so let me just try to distill it down to Alessandro, correct me if I'm wrong. Okay, so you're basically asking when you're working from life, it's kind of all right in front of you. And it's a little bit easier to juggle your choices because you have something to reference in front of you. Whereas when you're working from imagination, you're kind of inventing it on the fly. And how do you juggle all that? Is that your question? Oh, yes. Okay, great. Okay. So, that, I mean, that's a very good question because it kind of, oh, your mic's not working. Okay. I would say think about it this way. So when you're working from life, I do agree with you that it's harder when you're working invented, but when you're working from life, you do still have to kind of make choices.
Yeah, you're not like literally copying, but you do have something to pull from.
You have something to pull from in terms of hue, value, chroma, but in terms of edge hierarchy, you kind of have to make those choices because when you look at something, it's in focus and everything else is blurry. But then when your eyes, go over to that other section, then that's blurry and that's sharp. So you still have to make some in the moment decisions, like while you're creating it. So there are less balls in that court, but not everything is set just because you're seeing it from life. But what I would say is the question of how do you make all those decisions about color, contrast, atmosphere, edges, all those things. Working from invention or multiple sources is significantly more challenging. So how would you guys say that you juggle that if you just made that, beautiful portrait with the window, and you were making some decisions in real time. So how do you kind of juggle all those things in real time?
I think the I think we are trained. So like my experience from life before coming to school was like none. So I used to work from pictures. So basically, you're just copying something that you see like the best way possible. But when you're like copying from life, there are many variables that you're definitely like trying to match, but also you know better how nature works in terms of all the elements that you describe, also perspective.
It's more of
Like
an interpretation.
yes. So basically, like once you start like getting more familiar with all of these elements from life, then you kind of like get more sensitive of thinking in your head of an illusion. Like for example, if you're trying to do a depth of something, you don't have to have like the picture in like front of you. You kind of know like how to put the vanishing point in the right position just to make it look good. Because you as an artist, you have a good sense of perspective, like how to balance all these elements in a good way that doesn't feel like an abstract painting. So at the end, we are trying to recreate something that is realistic. So what I did in the last painting was basically I did a collage of different pictures, but I also had uh, an image in my head that I wanted to recreate. So I like that was my kind of like starting point, like what I wanted to do, and then like I just like okay, this is the window that I have that it doesn't look exactly like a window, but then I know I have the experience of how the light reacts in a surface. So I like build the form without having the actual shadow and light pattern.
Yeah.
So I think as you do more and more and more work from life, you get a lot more sensitive of how all these elements work, and you have to have at some point like something to reference just to kind of guide you. like a picture or something. So that's what I did with this painting. Like I had like uh, uh, I got a lot of different flowers from a lot of different images, and then I did a collage of one bouquet. Is
Yep,
that
okay.
bouquet of flowers? But then I had to recreate the lighting on each flower, so I basically used only the picture just to see the shape, but I invented the light and the shadow.
Mhm.
So I think just knowing how nature works in different surfaces and kind of like get used to that, I think helps a lot to uh have something that you can recreate, but also like change it in the moment.
Yeah.
And at the end, uh, having all the people, I think is very helpful because in that painting, I had a lot of different people like seeing the same painting. Some people tell a little bit,
Mhm.
okay, this can work, so it gives you a lot more ideas too.
Yeah. So you got feedback from other people?
Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
Yeah.
I think I think there's no way around you have to put in the work of working from life and practicing that if you want to do invented stuff that also looks like you worked from, you know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like it's like it kind of like what you're saying. It's just you did all this work working from life, so you can more readily do invented stuff. It's gonna be a lot more difficult to do that without having a lot of experience under your belt working
Mhm.
from life. If your goal is to make it look like you did it from life,
Yeah.
or you're inventing certain things.
Yeah.
I think.
Yeah. I mean, I would agree with that. I would say I'm 100% on board with what Antonio's saying, which is you do have to create this mental library of experience
Yeah.
working from life. And um, how you make choices about those things on a big painting. There's a couple things you can do. Is number one, you're pulling together multiple references. So you've got the pictures of different flowers, or you've got so you kind of have like the pieces, and then the painting is kind of like a tangible Photoshop in some ways, that you're creating those things, and then you're using your mental library of experiences, not only of the experiences of those things in real life, but the experience of previous paintings
Yeah.
and what effects worked and what effects you liked and which helped create additional depth. I would also add that there are certain studies that I do in advance of a big project. If I'm doing a lot of invention, there is no way that I'm going into the big painting without a color study. And that allows for me to make abbreviated summaries of color choices. And I know the general vibe I'm going for in the painting. So it's not that I'm finding out every little skin color I want, but I do know that, like, I know the general, zones of color that I want to get the specific effect. So we talked about using surfaces that we can take risks on. The color study acts as a playground for me to take really big risks on color choices and contrast choices and value choices with a big elaborate painting. So if there's a lot of invented stuff, I like to kind of make decisions up front about the general color scheme and how, like, the overarching composition and value design is laid out, so that acts as my guide when I am painting it. But there is a lot of stuff that I'm testing out in real time, but really color isn't a huge one because I'm working within the range of what my color study is telling me. But I can say, well, I want this to be in the distance, or I want this to be like more out of focus. So I'm going to use more painterly marks here, or maybe I just overly soften that paint or that edge. So I can kind of focus my decision making in real time, so I'm not juggling everything at once. I just make sure I already have a couple other balls put down before I'm dealing with the three that I want to work with on the big painting. I don't like surprises. I don't mind doing a little massaging and experimenting on the canvas with edge quality or chroma level, but I'm not like completely reinventing or not completely inventing it on the fly. Which I think, I mean, for the most part, I think you don't really necessarily do as much. Antonio is much more comfortable experimenting on the canvas and kind of making big adjustments on the fly. And I think that that's a lot of that's because he's also more comfortable with using the paint as, you know, in a more painterly effect. I get super neurotic and stressed about that. So I have to like do it intentionally. It just fits our personality differently. And so you kind of have to decide what works with your personality. Like if you're like Jess and I, who were semi-neurotic, you
Yeah.
you may like to do some studies, color study in advance and do the preparatory drawing. Or you could just kind of go straight onto the canvas because you're like, I'm gonna feel it out as I go and you're happy with the result type of thing. So does that
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, every time I put on the microphone, I get knocked off, and I was afraid I was going to get knocked off completely. But here we go. So I looked into the color studies. I've never done one, but I figured like when you guys observe, are you guys looking for the mother color when you guys squint? So like if you close your eyes completely and you barely open them,
Yeah.
right? You'll see what you see, which is
The mother color. I've
the
never
mother
heard that
color.
term, but I
I
like
like
I
that.
think. And then you open up halfway, and then you're gonna start seeing a little bit more intricacies. And then
Yes.
you open up all the way, and then you see that final kick of color. So, you know,
And that mimics the layers that I usually use to paint. First, second, third, squint, semi-open, open.
yes, please add anything that you have.
Yeah.
But for the most part, where I get a little bit confused is that so I read across a blog. That's how I actually got to know you. And thank you for being so kind over the phone when I called over there. But 0 would be lost, and then it would be 0 to 10, which would be the edge hierarchy, is what I learned through you, through a blog. So I figured like if the background's lost, and then you got your midground, and then your foreground, atmosphere, space, et cetera. I figured like, are the colors are gonna be very muted in the back, and then slightly more brighter in the middle, and then slightly more or the whole shebang in the front, and then that's how you do the hierarchy with color. And then it's in regards to value, I mean it's the same, I guess, light, medium, and then full range in the front.
So it depends on where you as the artist wants to direct focus. So if you're just going for straight, like I'm trying to create depth and atmosphere, the general rules are kind of like what you were saying is like softer, you're gonna see softer edges and lower contrast. It's not necessarily about the values, it's about contrast.
Mm.
So you're going to see lower contrast in the backgrounds, which in the atmosphere tends to be lighter, but if it's in a room, it might actually be darker. Just lower contrast in the background. High contrast is going to pull forward and create focus. But that doesn't mean you couldn't create a middle ground that you want the viewer to focus on. So you could do a foreground that's blurry, a middle ground that's in focus, and then a background that's blurry. So that's going to create a depth of field in which you're playing director
Mm-hmm.
because our eyes are dynamic. Our eyes, whatever we look at is what our eyes focus on.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're just creating a landscape where you want somebody to focus on the barn that's in the middle ground, that's what should have higher contrast and sharper focus.
Okay.
Right? And because you can have those foreground trees, they might be really dark and high contrast, but they might be blurry because you're asking the viewer not to focus on them.
Okay. uh um I hope you're patient for me. So if I'm drawing out of my head, I just want to keep all of that very simple. I'm assuming, yeah, okay. So I'm sorry, I'm tracking here. But for
Okay.
the most part, when you have a shadow shape and it goes into atmosphere, from what I understand, the contour line is connected to atmosphere. So from angle breaks to a contour line goes toward atmosphere because roundness kind of you don't see it from a distance. In the shadow from that part, can you add information in the shadow? I don't think you're supposed to, so that way the modeling in the front of the opacity of the paint on the light shape should pop, but can you add some variety in the shadow shape?
I,
Or is that just too much because it's too much information,
I'm trying
battling with each
I'm
other?
trying to picture what you're describing.
Yeah.
So let's say, so are you talking about a landscape here that has a lot of
Um,
information? Are you talking about like maybe just a single object where like can you I'm getting a little lost in the
yeah, I know my mind kind of runs. So let's just say I'm doing a portraiture, yes, and then you have the landscape in the back, and the landscape is somewhat dark. I'm trying to picture this in my head while I'm talking.
like
So,
this.
but yeah, if that was dark, right?
Yeah, that's darker than me.
Yeah. So let's say for example, or the gentleman on the left. Yes. So point at his ribs. Okay. Consider that the shadow shape, and then consider the background being somewhat half the tone of that, like somewhat like it's 6 p.m. with the dim lights or something like that. So if you have a lot of information going on inside of that t-shirt area, and also obviously there's information in the mid ground,
Mhm.
would you just keep that as simple as possible in the rib cage area? Because it would, oh yeah, I'm answering my own question. It would be battling with each other, right? The mid ground with the,
Yeah. I mean, so what you could say, like, okay, like this is kind of like where you get to play director. So I would say that this is pretty mid-ground right now, and then Antonio's shadow area, like this is gonna be compressed anyways because it's in the shadow. So this is the stuff where you're gonna have contrast, you're going to have light and shadow. But if there's like folds in here, there's no way I'm going to say those loudly. Like those need to be super quiet.
mm-hmm,
And what's really going to matter is like maybe instead of having, you're going to have sharp stuff here, maybe, oh, sorry, sharper stuff. Maybe that's where, this is a higher contrast. It's a color change, it's a value change, and it's foreground. I might make this sharper than this because even though it's a short depth, if I'm trying to make sure I'm making Antonio feel round,
mm-hmm,
I might like soften this edge a little bit so that, or even make it like make the background behind it a little bit darker to lose this. Or if
mm-hmm.
I want to pop him forward, I'd actually maybe make this lighter than it actually looks like.
I understand.
And that's kind of where I would find that also out on the value study, the color study, because I might just do what I see or do what I think. And when I see it, I'm like, he's like blending into the background, and that's not what I want. I'd rather have him standing out more. So then I might just make this a little bit lighter. So then his black t-shirt punches forward. I probably wouldn't do too much in the shadow.
Okay.
Shadows are always compressed because
Okay.
they're minimal light.
I think
I don't mean to jump back and forth, but in the color studies, is that how you observe? Are you supposed to like squint all the way down and find that mother color and then open up a little bit more and then find the variety?
That's usually that helps. The squinting helps. Or stand really far away.
Yes. And so I noticed that you guys do like little packages of color and not necessarily dabs, but brushwork.
Yep.
So would you say through the color study, when you actually look at the color study and you squint to try to really find that foundation color, you would do that and how do you call it? Well, just do one big slash, right? To overlap one color overlapping the other, not necessarily too much because then it gets a little muddy, but
You do them
is
right.
that the way you do it, or to get that bright? Here we go. Thank you.
This is an example of us. This is a little bit large, but this is an example of a color study or value study. So it is like you're squinting, right? It's almost like if this was really far away, you'd be like, oh, that looks like the thing. But when you come up close to this kind of smaller thing, it's just these little patchwork of exploration.
Gotcha.
Right. So the patchwork allows for you to make decisions efficiently.
Okay. Gotcha.
Okay. And this is also where you get to make experiments. So a lot of times you'll see most of our cast work, especially if it's on like a middle value background, we often have to make changes to what we see so it looks better in this compressed language.
Okay.
So, and that's kind of like where when we're talking about, a scene and it's fully invented, I'm making decisions about this is basically the outline for my essay,
Mm-hmm. Oh, I
right?
see. Okay.
It's
Yes.
like the outline for your essay where you're just trying out like I'm going to say this first. If I put this next to that, it looks loud, but if I make it darker, it'll be quieter. That's where you're trying out the vibe. That's where you're trying out, what those things need to be in order to get the painting you want.
Okay. I don't want to take too much time from the other people in line, so thank you very much for your time.
Yeah. I mean, there's no other questions. So
Yeah.
did you have further,
Uh,
were you,
yeah, I think I'm okay. It's just that when I'm observing reality. It's quite easy, but I just have a little bit of trouble because sometimes color is jumping life too much, or my shadows is jumping life too much and competing with other things around. And so I think I got this. Unless there's anything else you can add to that.
I would say try just doing color studies from life to practice doing the mechanics of the color study, where you're just saying, okay, here's a portrait. What does the forehead summarize? What does the temple summarize as? What does the eye socket summarize as? And then it's pinker around the cheeks and then grayer around the chin or whatever it is. So you like just practice doing it from life so that you get comfortable doing that,
Mm-hmm.
all the information available to you, and then it's going to be a lot easier to say now I got a collage, or like I have to bring all these things together. uh what are the decisions I want to make? And so now you already know how to do a color study, but now it's like a lot more exploratory and like I think this works. Okay, this kind of works. No, I like that better, right? Then it becomes a more feedback
Mm-hmm.
mechanism.
Do you guys have any online classes available for that?
I mean, my color boot camp is recorded.
Okay, I need to go on the website and double check
Yeah.
that.
Yeah,
Oh,
and there's, I mean, Eric's got a bunch of online recorded classes. I've got color boot camp and like a full painting one that's like a full 12-week class that I recorded. But what you're talking about, I would say just color boot camp.
okay. And one last question. Your school, like say for example, Florence Academy, they kind of focus on the whole sergeant thing. Your school, is there a particular artist that you guys kind of focus on, where I can kind of like bounce back and forth with to look at when I observe your guys' work? Because your guys' work, it really shouts, the colors. It's very
Uh,
impressive, actually.
that's a good question. I mean, I feel like
Lineage-wise.
lineage-wise, I would say David. I think I could be wrong.
Mhm.
Garrett would be better to answer this question, but I would say David. Um,
He's the one that's really good at doing. He was really well known for doing his black and white black and white studies, right? Or what's his full name?
Jean, something French. John,
Right.
yeah, John.
don't read it out
Yeah.
loud, is it? Because I don't think that's right.
Just do David.
Isn't it
Is
like,
it
is it actually
just
Jacques?
Jacques Louis David?
Louis. Yeah.
I know of it.
I think that's sort of part of our lineage, but I will not argue. I will say that um
Like
with
Jerome.
ARA Boston, I would say our Jerome.
Yeah, Jerome.
Jerome would be a good
Oh,
one.
Jerome.
Yeah.
Okay.
I feel like we're like
Yeah. But I figured Grand Central is more like Jerome type because they window shade real tight, very compressed.
Yeah.
And so what I saw with you guys is you guys do there we go. That's the word I was looking for. Brush application. How you guys do block. And so like I actually studied at Florence Academy in Mondal, but then COVID hit.
Yeah.
But I mean I studied all the ateliers on my free time, so I just really saw this difference on that brushwork, and your guys is just really pop. And so I was like where's this all come from,
I would say that one of the like I think the artist lineage is important to some degree, but I would say our philosophy as a school is our philosophy really is rooted in usefulness and application as in paint application, but like the skill, like we're more focused on the versatile set of skills. And
Mm-hmm.
so and that crosses a lot of different, that kind of covers a lot of different types of artists. So we don't necessarily do like the window shading is an approach. It's a valid approach. Some people really enjoy that approach. Our approach to painting is very much how we approach our drawing. We approach our drawing in a way that lines up with also how we teach painting, which is a kind of simple to complex approach. So
Mm.
when people are learning drawing with us, they don't realize it, but they're actually learning painting. So
Mm-hmm.
it's all we have adjusted some of our drawing methods it's so that when people get to painting, it feels familiar. And that's just the way that we found has worked for our set of students. And so our drawings also go from more simple to complex, where we're, and I don't know if Florence Academy is similar to this, where we kind of think about the larger forms,
Yeah.
and then we drill down into medium and small forms, rather than window shading, which kind of requires you to balance those things, the large and small forms as you're going.
Mm-hmm.
So again, they're just two different methods. Both are equally as valid.
It's funny though too, because we do have a little bit. I used to be like, oh, it's very separate, but because the way we teach paint, there's also that element of like, if you can
Yes.
do it,
If
you know,
you should
in
try.
first painting, you should try.
Yeah.
And it's essentially just window shading, but on,
Yeah.
a general first layer,
Yeah.
but most people can't or have a hard time with that. And so then we have them build it up in
We show the
stages.
possibilities of all
Yeah.
the
So there's like
there's additional layers.
there are different ways to go about doing this.
Yeah. And I would say that also the other thing that we try to make sure that, and this is also why we bring in additional workshops over the summers, and we also have Antonio do our Alla Prima Day, and we also provide additional opportunities within the program for students to experience multiple approaches.
Mm-hmm.
Because each person, painting is such a personal experience, which is why, we start with drawing and everything's really rigid. You have to use 2B pencils. You can't use any tools. This is, we're going to approach it in a simple to complex way. There's limited variability when you start, but as you progress through projects, your personal participation about decision making grows.
Yeah.
So
Mm.
charcoal is like, now you can use tools. What are you supposed to use? You got to try some stuff out. Then you start to get to chalk and charcoal. Oh, now we've got multiple different types of chalks you could use. What paper do you want to use? Do you want to tone it? We add the variables through the process so you just get comfortable. How do I experiment with new things? How do I test out my materials, right? So once you get to painting, canvas, brushes, how you use it. Are you using a mall stick? What surfaces are you using? What pigments are, it becomes infinite. So yeah, so that's kind of like where the approaches are all valid, but it's important for us to also for the students to experience some more painterly approaches, because it will affect how they decide to build their own personal process, their own personal, I call it like your art practice, like a yoga practice. Antonio and I both studied exactly the same way, exactly that we did all the same quote unquote projects. We studied the same way, studied the same methods, but each of our personal approaches within our personal art practice has evolved depending on other workshops we've taken, the way we like to use the paint, how we relate to the paint. Our content is all really different. Our approach is really different, but we still teach and learn the exact same way. So
Okay.
our priorities here tend to be more focused on what tools you're putting in your toolbox,
Mm.
problem solving skills,
Yeah.
the tools you put in your toolbox, and versatility and usability,
And learning how to see.
and using these tools.
And how to think.
I appreciate it. Thank you so much.
This tool and this tool.
Yeah.
We teach these two tools.
Yeah.
It's all here. It's less here actually. Okay.
A little bit.
Yeah. Okay. So does that answer all your questions?
Yes, thank you so much for your time.
Okay, great. Yeah, and I always say like most ateliers, we're all teaching the same thing.
Yeah.
We all teach the same thing. We just have different like
Yeah.
priorities, different, approaches to it, but it's all the concepts, the ideas, that all of that is working from life, building skills on how to understand light logic and form and all that stuff. Like we're all doing the same stuff. Each place has a maybe slightly different vibe, and you got to feel like what works for you.
Yeah.
They're all valid.
That helps out a lot. That's a big jump for me. Thank you.
Yeah, of course. Okay, so it's 1 o'clock. That's perfect timing.
Wow.
Wow.
Okay, thank you for participating in this. I just want to do a quick plug. We do have winter workshops that are in person here. 1 day, 2 day workshops coming up. We've got winter registration open for registration. That includes online atelier if you want to start doing some work with us online. And so that starts January 5th, I believe. And we do also have some workshops for 2026 already on the workshops page. So make sure you check those out at araboston.com. And I think if you're already signed up for this, the next time we do this, we will email you and let you know. If you have additional questions after this, you're always welcome to email the school or DM one of us directly in Instagram. But thank you, Jess and Tony, for coming in and hanging out today. I hope you all have a wonderful holiday season. Stay safe and take care of each other. And we will see you soon. Thank you for joining us at the ARA Boston Ask Me Anything.
Bye. Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.